Okay, thank you all for coming. My name is Raphael Ritson-Williams. I'm a PhD student in zoology. So I'm very fascinated by how climate change is affecting the world that we live in. And climate change is happening every day. We're producing more carbon that's going into the atmosphere, and it's completely changing the world we're living in, even though we haven't really noticed it yet. Many creatures, many habitats, and animals have already noticed it. It's already having a very strong effect. So one of the creatures I study are corals. These are some different species of corals in Kaneohe Bay, because they're very susceptible to climate change. And what happens is they're very sensitive to seawater temperature. So as climate change continues to happen, seawater temperature is rising, and it causes something called coral bleaching. This is a photo of coral bleaching. This white colony is bleached, whereas this would be considered a healthy coral colony. It has brown pigment. That's from the symbiotic algae that lives in the tissue of the coral. This algae is really important to the coral because it provides food. It gets food from sunlight, photosynthesis, and it gives it to the coral host, the animal. And this is just like renting an apartment, right? You pay rent. The algae is paying rent in terms of sugar. But when seawater temperatures get higher, when they get elevated, this symbiosis breaks down. It's because the algae can no longer make that sugar. It's under stress, can't function as well. And so it's kind of like if a renter doesn't pay rent, it gets evicted. And that's what's happened in this coral. They've evicted their symbionts. But that means the coral's really hungry. It's basically starving. So the longer bleaching lasts, the more dangerous it is for the survival of this coral. So bleaching is very rare in Hawaii, which is really exciting. It means our reefs are pretty resistant. It's only happened here in 1996. But then in both 2014 and 2015, we had two massive bleaching events in Hawaii. And this is scary. This, to me, highlights the fact that climate change is here. We've got to deal with it now. So I've been studying the coral reefs in Kaneohe Bay. I did a lot of surveys to find out that about 40 to 80% of the corals in the bay bleached, so pretty high susceptibility. But what was fascinating was I found this phenomena often in the bay. One healthy coral right next to one that was bleached. And this is fascinating because they're in the same exact environment. So there must be something fundamentally different about these two types of corals, because they're the same species and they have the same symbionts. There must be something fundamentally different that's driving this susceptibility or resistance to stress. So that's what I'm really interested in. I've tracked 60 of these pairs across the 2 years of bleaching, and consistently, the first year this pair bleached, the second year the same individual bleached. So that always happens, so I'm really interested in the genomics of this. How does DNA and genes drive tolerance to heat stress? And so I've done a process called EasyRad, which is a rad sequencing, which is looking at a small part of the genome to see if there's genetic mutations that confer resistance. And now I'm looking at physiology. I'm looking at gene expression to see if these corals can upregulate certain genes than the bleached ones. And this is going to be really informative because it will let us know how corals can persist in a changing world. That's it.